Greetings to all the viewers and listeners. Welcome to the fourth episode of LMUN SocTalks. Here with me, I have Miss Paavani Arora. Paavni, please tell something about the audience. Tell us something about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Paavani Arora. I'm 16 and I'm in my last year of high school. I'm currently exploring my passion for public policy and understanding the ways we can have political supervision and regulation to combat structural inequalities. I'm specifically interested in educational equity, especially for disability rights. I've been learning American and British Sign Language the last few months. So I'm interested in understanding how we can be the linking gap for different communities. I'm currently an international representative for India in the international nonprofit called HumanityUp. We're a group of ambassadors from around the world, 35 countries and over, working towards solutions, localized and globalized solutions for the SDGs and specific community problems such as coalition building or grassroots movements. And yeah, I'm a marine life conservation activist. I'm a deep sea scuba diver, so that's where it comes from. Thank you.
Is there something that you have left for us, Paavni? You are doing literally everything in the world. So now I'll ask you a question based on that itself. So people of our age, generally people of our age, have this problem of time management. They think that if they are involving themselves in activities, they are not taking out time for other things, for instance, family time or education or something like that, right? So they do not understand the importance of holistic education, holistic development, and personality development as a whole. And that also affects their mental health to some extent. So I would like you to tell us something about, time management and how do you personally manage your time? Because my method of managing time is, I believe it's quite unique, and I believe that it works for me because I've suggested it to a few other people and it didn't work for them. So what is your method? Maybe it could help other people.
Definitely, but I'd like to pin on something that you said, that your time management plan is very unique to you. So in that sense, I would say every time management plan that someone has needs to be unique to them. For me, I need a lot of time with my family on the weekends, and on the weekends I close my work regardless of whether I have an exam or something by 10:30 p.m. because 10:30 onwards it's movie time, it's game time, and that's a bit of self-salvation for me. So I would say the most important thing is to have independent time in your time management plan. You cannot do everything in the world. It's literally impossible. And I think that while people say that it's so important to do this, college applications need to see that you're an all-rounded person. An all-rounded person doesn't mean that you forget that you're still a person. You still need to make time for yourself. Mental health is very important. How I like to do it is that I would suggest that, this is probably like a very auntie thing to say, but you should make sure that you're paying attention in class, basically. It's I think for me, what's worked the most is that I've just finished most of my work, most of my schoolwork at the class time. And if there's a bunch of homework, I would only do the three most important things that are due that day. So I'd at least have an hour or 2 hours to dedicate that time to what I'm passionate about. If, for example, I have three subjects and two are due in 3 days and the last is due in 7 days, I probably do half of what's due in 7 days and then completely what's due in 3 days. So I would say, like, my suggestion would be to make it very personalized to you. Do what you like. Everyone has different ways of saying it. Do what's harder first, do what you like first. I would say do what you like first. It's easier for you to get over the slump of procrastination and get over the slump of not knowing what to do if you do what you like first. It just makes everything much more smoother. And keep time for yourself, because that's the only way you'll be ever able to manage anything.
Yeah, that's one thing really important that you said just now. Keep time for yourself, because if you wouldn't keep time for yourself, then you will be so engrossed in activities at first that you will be thinking that, yeah, you are doing a lot of productive work. But eventually that productiveness will decrease because you were not giving time to yourself, and now you're not able to do your 100%. You're not as efficient as you could have been if you would have rested a little bit. So give yourself breaks, give yourself a little bit of rest. Yeah, there is a hustle culture which is very popular these days, but you need to understand that you don't need to exhaust yourself, you don't need to exert yourself. So having the right opinion and having the right, knowledge about everything is equally important. So as Paavni said, understand what is happening around you, observe things, and then accordingly make a timetable, a schedule for yourself. Now, talking about things which are a little bit, higher, intellectually higher than the concepts of timetable and schedule. Let's talk about international politics. So the first question that I have for you is that what kind of a government or what kind of policies do you believe in? So that we could get to know a little bit more about your personal ideology when it comes to politics, and then I'll frame the next few questions.
So just 2 words, human welfare. I think it's so important to place human welfare at the center of policy decisions. And I know that like when we're measuring the well-being of a country, we've got so many indices. For example, the Happy Planet Index, we've got the Happiness Index, we've got the GNP, GNI, GDP, we've got everything. But none of that actually matters until you place the idea of what you're actually measuring. Does economic development mean human development? Probably not. So I think the idea of finding a measure that can evaluate what needs to be worked on is where policy should be. I cannot really say what type of policies should be there because we live in a very relativist world. I can't say that something that would work in India would work in Australia or for that matter, Poland, because Poland's doing much better than all of us combined. I think what we should focus on is figuring out what we're trying to measure. And I think human welfare should be at the center of every policy decision.
I absolutely agree to what you just said. And it reminds me of this theory. For instance, there are countries like France and US and UK. Something works for them and they try to implement it throughout the world. So to understand this, why it is implemented throughout the world, I'll take a very small example. So for instance, there is a certain mishappening in US itself. All right. There are so many mishappenings happening all around the world at all points in time. But if something happens in the United States, a person in India, a person in Pakistan, a person in Sri Lanka, all of them will be affected and all of them will be giving their opinion on that. Now, a person living in Uttar Pradesh might not give an opinion on something that must have happened in Bangalore, but they will definitely give an opinion on something that has happened in the Washington, D.C. Now, the reason behind it is that everything, now it could be economical reasons or the social reasons, but our lives are so much affected by the Western culture, by the Western civilization, that whatever they do, whatever pleases them, has to please us, has to affect us. Otherwise, we won't be able to function in this global paradigm. Now, this has been noticed as a pattern throughout the time. Now, colonization suited them, so we were colonized. If it didn't suit them, it was removed from us. Now, capitalization and all these things suit them, liberalization suits them, so we are trying to adopt that. Now, if that wouldn't work for them in future, they will remove that as well. Globalization, same thing happened. So my next question to you is, you being someone who was earlier in Dubai, your family, you before our talk started, ladies and gentlemen, Paavni and I were discussing about her family tree, and I've never heard a more complicated thing in my entire life. So she was telling me how her parents are from different regions and how she was brought up in Dubai, then she moved to Delhi, and now she's in Bangalore for some reason. So I actually hope to see you in Lucknow sometime soon. So the question to you is, seeing so many diverse cultures and so many multidimensional people, meeting so many multidimensional people, how has it affected your perspective towards life and things in general? And what differences have you seen in Dubai, India in general? And what would be your comparative analysis to it? And I want you to give an elaborate answer on this, so you may feel free to speak now.
Thank you. So alluding to what you were saying, there's a saying that goes, when the US sneezes, the entire world gets a cold. And I think that's a perfect application to what you're just asking me, is that because US is supposed to be the superpower, the hegemony, because we've all adapted to that Western culture, that life of dreams and promises, I think we're also trapped in the sense that there's just one way of life. And that's what I've personally learned, that there is not just one perspective of life. There's not just one ideology of how we ought to govern. which institution is better to attract more people? Does immigration mean it's good for the country? Does immigration mean it's bad for the countries? Every one of these questions have been debated through each of my experiences, living, communicating, networking. Every single experience I've had has taught me something different. It's also taught me that my step is so small, and it's actually humbled me to believe that our world trade is so big. Like we always, like statistics and numbers, so 7 billion people in this world is like a normal thing to say now, but normalizing it, it's actually subduing the impact of it. There are so many people in this world that we don't even realize actually exist. And I think, like, coming back to what you were saying, my comparative analysis would be just that culture, like trumps all. I don't know if you've read this book, but it's called The Clash of Civilizations by P. Huntington. And he speaks about this, that the next world war per se may not be a violence or a combat-based war, but it'll be on the foundation of different cultures and identities. And I actually connected with the book because I come from a very democratized and international belonging. I don't have a certain belonging. Obviously, India is my home, but it's not that I would say that I'm from here, like we had discussed before the recording. I think the main thing to realize is that culture is something that actually drives decisions. The culture in Dubai is very different to the culture in India, would be very different to the culture in Nigeria. Nigeria still has a very tribal identity. There are so many people I've met from Nigeria that while they are very westernized, while they are very developed, they still have that sense of tribal belonging. And that's what drives their policies. They just had Reformation Acts and a whole government fiasco a few months ago, in fact. But that was based on tribal identities. If you take what's happening in Myanmar, the coup was based on the culture, on the fact that democracy doesn't run everything. So I think cultural relativism, I had mentioned this before, but cultural relativism is so important to understand different countries. Like when we're doing comparative politics, we do it through a numerical data, empirical analysis. I don't think that works. Personally, I think it's so important to see things as a holistic level, taking the mean data of, okay, environmental development, okay, human development, okay, economic development, but you can't just say this is better than that because they're so different. In the UAE, it's a federal monarchy. In India, it's a parliamentary democracy. Understanding that difference itself is so in-depth, and I don't think I can just explain it right now, but
Right.
understanding institutions and their impacts and their differences, I think my comparative analysis would come from there, just understanding the differences and foundations and then seeing what we can compare.
Now, talking about culture, as you said, right? So this is one thing which I heard about. So it's like, for instance, we want to live in the past, and not just us, the entire world. We are looking for stories. We are looking to live inside, we are trying to hide ourselves in the past, the glory which was there. So we are not looking at the future right now. And this was very well pointed out by Yuval Noah Harari as well. You must have heard his name. So he's an Israeli. Yeah, you've heard his name. So he has also mentioned it, that there are so many people, in fact everyone in this world, the governments, the countries and the nations, everyone is trying to look back in the past and no one is being futuristic right now. So let's take the example of America. They want to make America great again. When was it great? 1800s, 1900s. All right, so you want to go in the past, you're not thinking about the future. Was there AI back then? No, it wasn't. It will be there in future though, right? So there are so many things revolving around AI and countries futuristic policies. So my next question to you is that, as someone who is as young as me, so my question to you is that, what is your point of view about AI and the future policies, and how will it be affecting the cultural as well as the religious backgrounds and traditions of people? Because these two things till now haven't found a way in which they can run parallel to each other, right? So how do you see it happening in future?
I think that comes from the idea of intersectionality. How can we combine the importance of each? And kind of relating back to your first question about time management, it's all about prioritization, but with the idea of ethics at the forefront. Environmental ethics social ethics, cultural ethics, and economic ethics. Nothing would work, and you have to have a win-win negotiation. Nothing would really work unless if a certain group says no. We can go ahead and do AI practices and AI research and discovery, and I think 100% we should. Because if you think 20, 50 years before, people used to think that by now we'd have flying cars, but we don't. And I think that just shows the tremendous progress that we have come and overcome, but the much progress that we still need to achieve to understand our world better. I think that, I don't know if you guys have watched this, but the Spider-Man No Way Home teaser trailer just came out yesterday. And in that, Doctor Strange says there's so much about the multiverse we yet don't know. And I guess that applies to real life as well. There's so much about our universe that we yet don't know. And there's so much about our lives that we are yet to extend. And I'm much in favor of AI, but I also believe that it's very important for us to realize the implications of it. When cancer came up, people didn't think, okay, what's the long-term consequence? People were like, okay, this is a short-term solution. That's what US did with Afghanistan. This is a short-term solution. Let's do state building. Let's figure it out. They don't have a long-term sustainable plan. I think the first thing we should do with AI is actually have a sustainable plan, actually figure out what is the use of it. I think Elon Musk just came out with a robot that actually talks to you properly. I'm not sure what her name is, but I think starting from there, like his inventions are amazing. I think starting from the idea of what is the purpose of it is the most important thing. And having ethics at the forefront for each dimension and each intersectional group of the future, which is social, social, cultural, environmental, economic, and political, inevitably, is making sure that you're not achieving one while foregoing the other.
I absolutely agree with what you just said. And in fact, my next question to you is regarding science and something related to innovative minds. So we live in a country where people are, although we all are very smart, but at the end of the day, our education system stops us from doing a lot of things, right? It entangles us in that system where we have to give most of our time to stuff which might not be relevant in future. So my next question to you is that, the fact that we are so much engrossed in the current education system, what are your views about it? And don't you feel that it is very irrelevant to what is going to happen in future? And what do you suggest? I mean, I'm sure that one day we'll be the ones, our people of our age will be the ones who will be making policies. So at this point in time, if you were asked that you are supposed to make the policies, education related policies in India, what would be your suggestions? What would be your implementations?
So I would start off with, we all have physical education classes. PE is compulsory, but I have personally not seen a school that allocates as much importance to physical education as mental health. And I think that would be at the forefront. If we're having compulsory physical education classes, you don't want to completely do mental health education, that's completely okay. But at least allocate some of those PE lessons towards mental health education. I think at the forefront of change, it is imperative that we realize that we're actually we're run by our minds, we're run by our brains, and often we forget that. People think that we're supposed to be technical workers, but technical workers come from our mind, and if that's not understood properly, like psychology is not done properly, school counselors honestly need to be like very responsive and communicative with the students, and that can only happen once it's actually given importance. The second thing is I would actually suggest this I don't know how to call it, but it's kind of like a report by Sir Ken Robinson. He gives his evaluation in education systems, and Elon Musk actually just did this with his Ad Astra program, that education shouldn't be on the basis of your ability to pass a certain level, that level that has been decided X number of years ago, that level that only X number of people have been able to pass. It should be based on technical and vocational skills. Examinations, first of all, shouldn't be pressurized situations, because while our world is unprecedented, while our world is rapidly evolving, it's not very common for us to be put in a situation where we're expected to come into answers in 1 hour. Or while, I mean, there are a lot of jobs that do that, but it's not the basis of education. That's not how you personally develop. I would suggest that the reevaluation of examination should definitely be something that a policy should consider, whether an examination should be a testing on the subject course or an activity based on that subject course. I'm doing the International Baccalaureate program. And in the IB program, we actually have these things called internal assessments. You're doing a lab report on that. But again, we're assessed on it, which is a great thing. I think we do need numeric, like our world runs on numbers, everything runs on numbers. So we do need a numerical evaluation of it. But I think it's so important for us to realize that numericals don't tell us the proper answer. And so a policy that would be based on, first of all, like coming back to what I was saying about disabilities, expanding the right to education. Does it just mean access? Does it just mean free for income groups A to B? Does it just mean it's obligatory? I think expanding the right to definition, especially for the disadvantaged and vulnerable groups, is the first thing. And second of all, I think it's very important to be flexible. The 8 ideals of public policy in education, it's a report as well from UNESCO. You guys should definitely read that. But one of it comes from flexibility, and flexibility means capillarity for the subjects. You cannot have the same type of examination for maths as you can have for the arts, or the arts that you can have for political science. If you're just going to test me on theory for political science, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm literally just going to be stuck in, okay, liberalism means cooperation, realism means conflict. I'm not going to learn anything other than that. So having the capillarity between subjects is also very, very important.
That answer gave me so many positive and intellectual vibes. I can't just elaborate upon that by words. Now, next thing that I would like to ask you is that even I have so many ideas, and I'm sure that to do stuff, you must be, ideas must be bursting in your head all the time, and you'll be observing things around you. But it's very hard to find people who think likewise. It's very hard to find people who are like-minded. So and you need people to make a difference, right? And that is what people don't understand. At times you can do things on your own, but when it comes to a bigger picture, when it comes to a larger picture, you need more people, you need to interact with more people. So what I personally do is, when I do not find someone of my age, I try to interact with people through podcasts like I'm doing right now. I try to interact with people through conferences or events or internships. So what is your way of dealing with this problem of not getting to meet like-minded people usually?
That's a great question, and a big problem that I faced. It also gets very exhausting and demotivating when you feel like you have no support around you, especially when you have, like you said, so many running ideas and nowhere to implement it or nowhere to get considerations from. Oftentimes, our families are not the best people to share them with. So that's actually what led me to join HumanityUp, and I'm very grateful for my personal development there. We are a cohort of many ambassadors, and it's not that you have to be just one person from that country. We've got like 16 people from Nigeria itself. So I mean, if you want to join, no one's stopping you, but not to publicize that. I think just if you can't find like-minded people in your immediate network, expand your network. I've met a lot of people from LinkedIn, and I just recently joined LinkedIn. I didn't have it for a long time, but even then I've met so many inspiring people just from their profiles and reaching out to them and saying, hey, I really liked what you said about this. Would you like to set up a call? And oftentimes I get a no or no answer, but oftentimes when I do, it's such a valuable experience for me and such an insightful experience. So I would suggest that a lot of the people should start a LinkedIn if you're 16. If you're not 16, try to join networks that you know of, and that comes from research. Like you said, internships also have helped me expand my network as well. There's actually someone that I've never met, but I did an online internship with her. She's now going to Harvard, and just having that network is such a cool thing for me to have, and it just makes me feel very inspired and makes me more motivated than demotivated to do something.
In fact, I would also like to add to that what you just said. Building your social currency is really important in today's time, because social currency is what helps us cooperate amongst each other and helps us come with good ideas and brainstorm revolutionary changes around the world, right? So building your social currency is one of the very important things in life. So when we talk about LinkedIn, we need to understand that I also made my LinkedIn account, in the beginning of this year, and then I started, communicating with people right there. Now it was quite demotivating for me in the very beginning because people were not replying at first, or maybe whenever they were replying, I did not get an affirmative response from them, right? So, but then someone told me that people of my age who are at least trying to interact with these people through LinkedIn, like yourself, right? They told me that when we are doing this, we are actually trying to walk on the clouds when other people are not even trying to look on in the sky, right? So at least we are trying to do something, right? And this way we'll know the practical realities. Yes, please go ahead.
Just to add on to what you were saying, it got me thinking. I actually watched a reel on this a few days ago, but do things specific to your field. If, for
Mm,
example, if you're really into media production, watch the latest movie. Like I just watched Shersha yesterday. Go to Shersha, go to the end credits, see who the media production team is, see who the art production team is. You can get in person there. You can find their emails through LinkedIn. You can find their emails through any search engine. If it's difficult, then try the second person under the name. And sometimes it's quite difficult for politics, for political science students, because you don't know where to look, you don't know what to do. What I would suggest is a lot of government reports have
mm,
specific beneficiaries, or they also have specific people supported by program ABC. For example, I just got an internship because I went to the UNESCO New Delhi cluster office and I saw that they had just published a transforming mentalities report. They had a like they at the end credits they had thank you for a specific partnership with, and then they had a number of NGOs, a number of informal providers. I took the three that seemed most interesting to me because I didn't want to do a conventional internship with any other organization or NGO. I found three that seemed most likely to me, found their emails and did that. So I think like specialization is also very important when you're trying to find people around you. Like we all can say I'm very interested in international relations, but to find that motivation, you have to find what specifically in international relations you want to learn more about.
so prioritization, and then identifying what you want to do. So every answer that you gave was interconnected to each other. Now, talking about demoralization, which is being faced by youth in general. So what is your take on that? Have you ever been demoralized, and how do you tackle that?
Gender equality. I think this is a very common one, but gender equality is something that not a lot of people, especially in my family, not a lot of people, especially in my family, accept, and it gets very difficult. So I think what I do sometimes is that my parents love to talk about politics. My grandfather loves literature. So if I'm talking to my grandfather, I'd bring up a specific book and I'd be like, hey, but did you realize, like, for example, we were talking about The White Tiger because the movie came out. And I said, hey, did you realize that Pinky Madam actually was a feminist? She was actually very independent. She was actually very this. What do you think about that? I wouldn't use the words feminism or feminist. I wouldn't use the words social policy, or I wouldn't use the words like generalization. I would make it very generalized. I would make sure that I'm pertaining to a conversation that's about the topic without telling them it's about the topic. So that's how I deal with it.
That's an interesting way. You make them hear what you want them to hear, but make sure that at the end of the day, it does not trigger them. So that's one way to go about it. Wonderful. Now, I want to also know that what do you plan to do in future in the next 10 years? Where do you see Paavni Arora?
That's a good question. And as complicated as my belonging is, even more complicated is my future plans.
Okay.
But I would say that I do see myself working on ground for children welfare in third world countries. And I do see myself in policy supervision and regulation for educational disabilities, educational equity in the disability field, definitely.
Seeing that you are well read at such a young age and you are sure what you want to do and you've already found the purpose of your life, I'm very sure that you'll be able to achieve whatever you want. In fact, much more than this. So, best of luck for your future endeavors. And is there a
Thank
last message or an advice or something like that that you want to give to all our listeners and viewers? Because understand, these are not just youngsters, there are people older than us who are watching this podcast. So, what do you have to say to them?
Definitely. I think it's something that I practice with my changemaker cohort at HumanityUp, and it's something that I've shared with my parents. And it's just gratitude. I think if you just reflect on the 3 activities that you want to do most, that you have not been able to do, and if you were to have a very difficult situation in the next 1 hour and you had to choose one of those 3 activities to do, which one would it be? And then just do that activity. That's how I started learning American Sign Language. That's how my mom started doing her psychological practices. And that's how my dad started his own startup at the age of 51. Sorry, Dad. 51.
No, that's something that will definitely offend him after listening to this podcast. But yeah, I must say, I must congratulate your parents for having a daughter such as you. And I'm
That's so
sure.
sweet. Thank you.
And one more thing that I would like to add here, that one thing that I've noticed about India particularly, here people do not want to be efficient. They are status driven. Most of the people are status driven here in this nation. Now I'll give you a very small example of this thing. Now you tell a person that if they will pay 10 rupees extra to the Swiggy guy, they will receive the delivery 5 minutes earlier. They will say, no, what's the point? Let it come at whatever pace it is coming in. All right. But if you will tell the same person that, all right, pay 2,000 rupees and for 1 hour in this entire month, just for 1 hour, your picture will be there on the billboard, which is there in the middle of the city. They will immediately pay 2,000 rupees. Now, is that giving them wealth? No, it is not. Intellectual wealth? Not. Actual money wealth? No, not. Nothing is happening, right? Financial wealth? Not. But they will definitely invest in that. Why? Because they feel a sense of superiority after doing that. They do not want efficiency. Here, this is what happens. What I've noticed with my friends in US, their parents and their relatives, what happens over there is that people ask each other, how much do you earn per day? How much do you earn per hour? Right? You know your income per hour so that you know the value of your time. Here, if you ask someone how much do they earn, they will tell you per month. So they do not know the value of their time, and that is why they are unable to allocate it properly. So is there something that you want to say regarding this? Because this was just something which I wanted to share. Is there something which you want to talk about?
I think you brought up a very, very significant point about our country, and I think the word we use for it is jugaad. Um, I think it's more of a fact of our culture again. What type of a culture have we all fostered? We've, like you said, we've been colonized. We've had such a rich history, and we still look at our history and our past for those lessons, those cultural values, those perceptions. We use our culture. We value it. So I don't really have anything to say except the fact that you articulated your opinions and thoughts very well. And I think that, economically speaking, it's true that we don't know how to value our time, and that's more because of the cohort of people we live in. I think it's time to reflect upon individuality instead of commonality.
Now, out of all the similarities that we have, one thing that you told me before the podcast was that you like maths, and that is one thing which is not similar. I absolutely hate maths. So thank you so much to the audience for staying connected to this moment. And I'm very sure that you all will be inspired and will be happy after listening to Paavni. And I'm sure that this podcast will add value to your own life. And till then, take care of yourself.